Woodford Truffles is essentially a family business that started 10, 11 years ago. We've tried all sorts of different ideas, but this truffle idea seemed to have stuck with the family, and we've actually evolved it over 10 years, and we seem to have been quite successful so far. Truffle's a really special ingredient for chefs. It comes around once a year, so it's a seasonal product. It's quite rare. It's exclusive, especially in South Africa. We haven't been able to get it in the past. Now we've brought truffles in a cultivated environment for the first time to the South African chefs. Truffle essentially is a fungus, and it has to grow on another piece of organic matter. So truffles have a symbiotic relationship with trees. So our job is to basically get that tree to be completely infected with the truffle. We analyze the roots as we go along the way, and we make sure that the root has got the mycorrhizal totally infected on it. That symbiotic relationship has to then be passed on to the farmer, and then once a year we get a harvest. Once that truffle reaches maturity, it starts to emit a flavor and an aroma into the air. We train dogs to find that flavor. The vision for Woodford is to try get the chefs to understand that truffles are available in June and not just when the Europeans are harvesting. To date, we've got about 100 hectares across South Africa, right from the west coast, Piketberg, and it goes all the way along the mountain ranges, right up to the Kokstad areas. We're basically bringing truffles to South African tables at a really competitive price to European. So this picture on the left here is a typical truffle orchard. This particular one is in the Natal area. You can see there are oak trees. And this is a typical truffle dog that we smell the truffles when they stop ripening. That is myself on our farm with my dog looking for truffles. And when we dig the truffles out, they're full of sand, like the picture on the right. And we have to clean them off, obviously, before they get to the restaurant. On the left here, you can see once it's clean, it looks like that. It's got an unusual texture on the outside. When you cut it open, you can see the interior on the right. It's a very interesting texture, which is really what, when you're using it on your plate, you want to try and expose that texture and use it as a garnish in a sense. It is a fungus, so it's a mushroom, essentially a family of mushroom, and it's growing underground, so that's why it looks like that. You can't see it when you're hunting for it, and that's why the dog is needed to go dig it up. And the about 5 months to actually form from sort of January up until June, July, when they're fully sized up and starting to then ripen and the aroma comes out the ground. That's when the dog is brought in to smell it. Once we've got it out of the ground, we then clean it and get it ready for the kitchens. So the truffle taste, it's actually an aroma. It's a aromatic experience. It's a mouth experience. In a tongue experience, essentially. So it all happens in the nose. Difficulty and the challenge for the chef is to hang on to that aroma during the cooking. So you actually have to be very quick to use the truffle because the aroma will actually disperse quite quickly. If you haven't stored your truffle properly, that flavor is going to dissipate and you're going to lose that flavor. So you have to be very careful on how to store it. What the industry has done is create, which is the truffle oil everybody knows about. And what you need to know about this truffle oil is that it's a synthetic. You can possibly see at the very bottom of the bottle, there's a tiny little black speck. That's the truffle. It is a petrochemical. You can make truffle oil yourself, but it doesn't last long because the aroma is essentially a bacterial colony which exists inside the truffle and the soil around the truffle when it's growing. So that bacterial colony, once you've picked the truffle or harvested it, it's going to start decaying and start losing its aroma. So that is why the oil or the truffle aroma or essence has been created. The problem I find with the essence is that it's a very, very, very different taste and smell to actual truffle. There's two completely different tastes. So the preference is to try and use fresh truffle, store it properly, and make sure you can get that aroma to the plate and to the end user. If you haven't, as I say, you may need to resort to the truffle essence. If you have to do that, my biggest advice to you is to use very little of it. Don't over do the oil. It ends up in your mouth. It's quite an insult to your taste buds. So be careful of it. Just use a very little bit of it. In Europe, truffles are purchased in truffle markets, which happen in some of the big towns in Spain and Italy, and in France as well, obviously. Here is a look at what those markets look like. I'm going to play you another one. Truffles grow all over the world. They originally started growing only in the European high mountains where it's very cold. And obviously Northern Hemisphere, it's Christmas time for them, so it's winter. In the Southern Hemisphere, it's 6 months out. So it's June, July, August, that's when our truffles. And you can see from this map, our competition in the Southern Hemisphere is Australia, New Zealand, as well as Chile. Argentina is now growing as well. So this is truffle growing areas. So they don't grow down here by the coast where it's warmer, it's up in the mountains where the snow line is. There's a lot of different kinds of truffles. These are just 6 of them. About 3 of these or so, yeah, 3 of these are the main ones that are used in the kitchens today. The Melanosporum, it's the black truffle, the black winter truffle. Over here, it's the black summer truffle. The outsides look exactly the same, but the interiors are very different. The summer truffle has less taste than the winter truffle. The most expensive truffle is this one, the tuber magnatum. It's the white truffle. It hasn't been able to be cultivated yet. If it could, we would be growing it. Okay, so those are different kinds. There are obviously a lot more. Oh, one other thing, the Chinese truffle has very little taste. Be careful of it. It's different looking. The interior is a lot finer in its striations inside. So be aware when you're buying truffle, which kind of truffle it is. The one we're selling is the tuber melanosporum. That's what they look like. Picture's a little brown. They're more blacker on the outside. They've got different names. Either the scientific name is tuber melanosporum. It's also known as the Périgord truffle or the black winter truffle. So when you're buying your truffle, there's a couple of things you need to know. These pictures are inside our quality control. These are the 4 main things you need to look at when you're buying. The outside appearance is important. Is it whole or has it been damaged in any way? Sometimes you'll get damage from bugs scratched it. It's also possible that bugs could have eaten a section of it, or maybe it's taken a bit of frost and it's actually frozen and then starting to deteriorate badly on that side. These can all be cut away and the truffle's perfectly fine after that. The next most important thing is the aroma. Pick up your truffle, smell it. Are you getting the smell that you want? Is it a full, rich smell? You should be getting the smell. I describe it as a sort of a damp forest floor. It's very difficult to describe it. It's a unique smell all by itself. It shouldn't be smelling ammonia or vinegary. That's when it's gone too far. The next thing you can check is the firmness. You literally push it with your finger. It's quite firm. It's sort of woody in a sort of a soft woodiness on the inside. It shouldn't really depress in any way.
Think of hard potato.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a potato. It's got a little bit of give, but it's not soft, okay? The next thing to check is the interior. The interior needs to have these white lines in it. This is when it is perfectly ripe and ready to eat. If those lines are starting to slightly disappear, then it's reached the end of its life and you need to eat it very fast. Truffles last about 21 days from harvest. So that is once it comes out the ground. And it might take up to a week to get to a distribution point or to us, then get to the table. You may keep it for a week. So you buy it on Monday, Tuesday, you want to serve it on the weekend. So that's 2 weeks gone. You need to consume that whole truffle, pretty much get it consumed. Don't wait. So this is our lab where we control the qualities and cut away anything that looks bad and sort them out in terms of aromas. This is a grading standard that is pretty much what the Europeans use, and we've adopted the same system in South Africa. The names are superior, class 1, class 2, and pieces. Pieces arrive when there's damage, and we've had to cut away a section that's not looking good. Your best one is the superior. The reason for that is the wholeness of the skin on the outside holds the aroma in it. Once you make a cut, the aroma escapes and it slowly starts dissipating. So your highest value is 18 Rand a gram. That's this year's prices. And that's an uncut one. Sometimes the superiors do get a small cut on the one corner just to make sure that the interior color is right, because you can't tell unless you had cut. So your superiors will have a small little cut on it. Class 1 has got more cuts, class 2 has got further cuts, and the shape might be a bit strange, and pieces are obviously pieces. Storing your truffle is very important. The picture on the right is a method of storing. You can put it with eggs in a closed container, and you'll find that the eggs overnight will get the taste of the truffle in them. You can then eat the egg in it whichever way you want. But you need to keep your truffle in a closed container. Some people wrap it in paper towel. Some people put a little bit of rice to absorb the moisture. You must remember that they are deteriorating over time. They're losing moisture and they lose weight through the moisture loss. So in your closed container, that you will see that they sort of sweat in a sense. There'll be moisture droplets on the edges of the container. Every day you need to dry the truffle. You need to check it and dry it until you use it. You need to care for it every day, check it. The paper towel, if it starts getting damp, you can change it, put a dry one in. So keep your truffle dry. You can literally pat it dry with a cloth, a clean cloth or a paper towel. Big rule, eat it sooner than later for the maximum flavor. It's best within that week, okay? If you know that you're not going to eat the truffle, wrap it in tin foil and freeze it in a container or in a vacuum wrap or in a jar. There's different ways, and I'll show you a film at the end of how to consume that truffle, how to cook with that truffle at the end. Let's keep moving. When is a truffle no longer usable? Okay, so you got to check the firmness of the truffle. So when it begins to soften slightly to the push, it's reached its highest ripening point, and you should consume that truffle immediately. If you keep it longer than that, it'll start getting a slightly soapy feel on the outside. If you cut it, it starts getting that soapiness is a kind of almost like a soapiness is the best way to describe it. If they become slightly mushy in texture and they start smelling of ammonia or sort of a vinegar smell, it's over. You got to chuck it. You've lost it. Okay. Every day you want to clean that truffle off. If it starts getting a sort of a white, it's actually a mold on the outside, like a white fluffiness, you can literally brush it off with a nail brush very carefully. You can also put it under running cold water and use the brush on it, and then pat that dry. Let it air dry for a moment, put it back in your container, use it. Don't store it any longer. To avoid this kind of waste, be conscious of the state of your truffle when you get it and check it every day for any quality defects. Okay. Cooking with truffle is, you have to be inventive. Okay. You can actually, because of the firmness of the truffle, you can actually slice it. This is a truffle slicer, like a chocolate slicer. And you can get very thin, paper thin layers that you can pizza, or you dress it onto your plate. You can slice them up into little thin toothpicks. You can actually use a cookie cutter. Just remember that the more you play with your truffle, the more you're going to lose the aroma. It's important to get the truffle at the end of your cooking process onto your dish and then get it to the table as quickly as possible. That is the reason why chefs actually shave the truffle on the table in front of the client, because that's the real way to get that flavor into the experience. So use it as, be careful how quickly you use it. These are different sweets that are using truffle as garnish, and some of them may have been put inside. The first one is a tiramisu. This is a creme brulee. This is some sort of a meringue of sorts. I'm not sure. There's a pastry. You can see each one of them are using the truffle as a decoration on top, as a final sort of signature to say, well, this is a truffle dish. So that is fairly important. Here, this is one of our favorite dishes. It's literally a pasta, a simple ingredient. You want to use simpler tastes that aren't going to fight with the truffle because it's quite a subtle taste. So a pasta with a cream. The fats of the cream really carry the truffle flavor really well. When you're cooking the cream sauce, you would actually put a little bit of the truffle into the cream sauce towards the end of your cooking process, and then you shave on in front of the plate, in front of the client onto the dish. Here are some other dishes that are also being used. There's a bruschetta, there's a pizza. This is a goat's cheese with the truffle sliced into it. It's really amazing to do. The fats, I find, with the butters and the cheeses, they really carry the flavors quite well. This is a cream sauce again. They work really well. Over here, we've got a butter. You literally take the butter, you soften it in a bowl. You then introduce your truffle fresh, sliced into there or grated in. You mix it. You roll it into the shape you want, and you put it in the freezer. You can then slice these into little discs, which could melt over a steak, or put it on a hot dish and they kind of melt into your dish. You can just simply put it onto a bruschetta and have it like that. You really get the taste out of this. It carries the taste really well. This is one of my favorite recipes. It's a simple vanilla ice cream. And while making the custard, you warm the custard up, obviously, and you introduce the truffle into the end of that process. Don't cook it. It's just warmed. You mix it in. You then put that straight into your ice cream maker, freeze it, and it really, really, really carries that taste so well. It's one of my favorites. Okay, what have we got here? This is a movie to show. It's a Chef Christophe de Hoss from Glen Elly Estate. He, at the end of truffles, he'll buy truffles and freeze them so that he has truffles to use for the rest of the year.
Truffle is all about flavor. It's all about scent. Every day it loses a little bit. Rather freeze a truffle fresh when it's been harvested than trying to keep it a week or longer into your fridge. Overnight you defrost gently. When you open your bag, you'll have a little bit of juice maybe running. That's, you don't throw it away, you use it for your sauce. That's gold. take a stock and bring it to a warm temperature, chef some truffle in it, leave it rest, and maybe the next hour or so use that stock to deglaze the pan as we do then make my sauce. And then you use your truffle like it was a fresh one. It's just as simple is always the better. The truffle must be the star. I think that's really what it is. Yeah.
You're welcome to email us, ask us questions. If you have some difficulties with cooking and you want to actually just get some more insight, you're absolutely welcome to call us.